So we just will go ahead now and move on to this next matter. It concerns Lautech, and as a matter of fact, you remember there's been this back and forth about about Lautech. So between the governors of the state of Osun and Oyo, both of them, they are supposed to be working together to run that institution. Remember that some time ago you thought all was well, but at the moment there's still questions about how do they move forward. Well, we do have Professor Olu Aina. He joins us via Skype. He is the Lautech Consultative Committee. He's off that Lautech Consultative Committee. Good morning, Professor. Thank you for joining us today on the program. Could you tell us what is the current situation now in terms of resolving the issues concerning both states?
Well, Osho is ready for a discussion for a roundtable conference with our counterparts in Oyo State. And as soon as we get the right signal, we can sit down and sort it out.
Comments attributed to the governor of Oyo State saying, look, this problem can be resolved if or when the management or the running or the ownership of that institution is handed entirely over to Oyo State. Are you aware of that comment, and what do you think?
Well, I was told, but I thought it was a rumor. I would like an opportunity to sit with His Excellency Governor Makinde or whoever his people are, that have been prepared in the agreement reached by the two governors. And they can put the matter on the table and we can talk about it in the spirit of the fact that we are brothers, and we should give leadership to the people behind us. So let's sit down and talk about it.
Professor, it's been almost 20 years since Osun State, was formed out of Oyo State. There was no problem about ownership because it was all just one Oyo State. Why has it taken so long to resolve this issue?
Actually, it's the agitation, the crisis actually started during the tenure of His Excellency Governor Christopher Akala, when he thought that the university should be ceded to Oyo State, and the matter boiled over. The matter went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled against that position, and the university kept going. That was 10 years ago, but it keeps coming up from time to time. And there's no way the matter can be solved on the pages of newspaper or, people making statements. We should sit down. We are matured people. Sit down. We are brothers. Sit down. Talk about it.
Issues that's responsible for all of this back and forth.
And the thing that as to whether or not people think Osun is not faithful to the ownership arrangement, let us sit down and talk about it. I was also told yesterday that even the NUC is interested in getting the matter resolved, which is good, because the administration of universities is in their domain. But I was also told that the NUC executive secretary appears to have a formula for the resolution of the crisis. My advice to the NUC is that they should play a neutral role, facilitate the two sides sitting together, not when one side goes to them and then, they make a policy statement. I'm still waiting for clarification on the statement credited to the executive secretary of NUC.
Now, when you go back to the root of this ownership crisis, you went back to the time of former Governor Alao Akala and former Governor of Osun State, Oyinlola. And I recall that one of the reasons which was said that the former governor asked for ownership was the fact that Osun State had a university, which was Uni Osun. So do you think that based on, that, don't you think Oyo State is perhaps right in asking for full ownership of the university?
Well, but today, even Oyo has its own university also. Ownership of another university is not enough reason. In Washington, D.C., there are 94 universities in that town. There's nothing stopping anybody from having more universities to cater to the needs of its people. So I don't see that as a good reason. If anything, the more universities, the better it is for society. So that these universities can compete, and improve their laws. That's not a good reason.
We were getting some signal. People were reporting that perhaps Osun finally would want to let go of LAUTECH to maybe focus on a Uni Osun, which is projected to be a mega university. And a lot of people have proposed ways out. Some say perhaps it should be a gradual process, 5-10-year process. Some say it should be sudden, such that Osun State can focus on its own university. But what are some of the proposals on ground when it comes to this ownership crisis?
Well, let me tell you, Osun is ready to have a discussion. Osun is ready yesterday. Whether it should be gradual or it should be sudden, it has to be negotiated by the two owners. When the matter boiled over the other time, Osun went to the Supreme Court for a resolution of the crisis. There is a ruling by the Supreme Court. Osun is abiding by that ruling. Secondly, when the matter boiled over the first time, NUC intervened. They set up the Mafiana panel to look into the matter, and the agitation from Oyo to solely own the university came up in that intervention. And in its own wisdom, the Mafiana panel set out the parameters for separation. So there are two things that are guiding Osun State: the judgment of the Supreme Court and the resolution of the Mafiana panel. But let me tell you, if there's going to be a divorce between among the two states, Osun is ready, but the matter has to be discussed. What are the terms? So let's sit down and talk about it. We are all mature people, and we have to have respect for each other. Let us not solve this problem on the pages of newspapers or by default. Let's sit down and talk about it, even between a husband and a wife.
Right.
If there's going to be us, also is ready for discussion.
Right. Just one more thing. If I'd like to get your candid opinion, we know funding has been a major issue, not just for LAUTECH, but for the education sector in the country in general. So, candidly, do you think that one state can adequately fund LAUTECH?
Well, what I know is that whatever Osun lays its hands on, they will be faithful to it. And I believe that's true. Will also be true of any responsible government. Funding has always been a problem in any venture. Anyway, education not being an exception. But it is determination. It is the ingenuity of the people. After all, these students who are in these institutions pay tuition. We owe them some loyalty. We owe them support to achieve their aspirations. All these things can be sorted out through.
Let me ask you this before we go. Prof, just a minute. Where are we now, or where are both states currently on the resolution of this matter?
Well, I can only tell you where Osun is, which is that Osun is ready for a discussion. Whether it is for the continuation of the relationship or it is for a divorce, Osun is ready. We should sit down.
And Professor Olu Aina is the LAUTECH Consultative Committee. Well, we did reach out to Oyo State. We're hoping that they will eventually speak up on this matter and see how they can sort this out, whether it's going to be out of court or otherwise. People want solutions. So we will be back in just a moment. We've got another lap. Stay with us.